Judicial sitting, holy place. So, judicial sitting, a holy place, na ay judicial sitting as a holy place sa dead, na po judicial sitting, a holy place para sa living. Now, diri po, ang judicial session, gamay lang review nga, judicial session, most holy place, then na po judicial session sa most holy place para sa dead, na po judicial session sa most holy place para sa living.
Sama sa preposition nga gigamit sa sentence, gihatag diri nga kung maghisgot og
Good morning and happy Sabbath, and especially to our brethren that are listening online from Malaysia, Australia, United Kingdom, Africa, also in Zambia, in the United States of America, and especially in Georgia, Kansas, and also Colorado and California, and also in Pakistan, right? We also have some brethren. What else have it? Australia also. So, happy Sabbath day to all. And our subject, we were trying to deal this subject about the 66 books in the Heavenly Sanctuary, and we already reached special episode number 19. So what we just talked about, since we already started, I think, 2 hours ago, or an hour and a half, is that about the judicial procedure in the Heavenly Sanctuary, by which Jesus Christ himself is the one who arranged it. So, and it's not just simply being arranged, but perfectly being arranged by Jesus Christ. So we need to be familiar with the procedure. So the first thing that we tackle is about the term judicial session and judicial sitting. So when we say judicial sitting, it is every time when we read the term sitting, whether in the shepherd's rod or whoever is going to discuss here in front, we should always bear in mind that the term sitting, it is applied in the judicial procedure in the holy place, in the apartment. And every time when we hear the term judicial session, it must be that that procedure is in the most holy place. So it's either judicial sitting or judicial session. Both of them, they have a proceeding that pertains to the dead and also to the living, right?
that is the principle that is given by the shepherd's rod or the inspiration itself. The example that is given here, when we read the preposition of, it's like the example that is given here, the same with the preposition of, for example, the judgment of the dead. That proceeding occurred in the most holy place.
So if we talk about the judicial session, must be in the most holy place. If we talk about the judicial sitting, must be in the holy place. So the preposition of must be in the most holy place, but the preposition for must be in the holy place.
It's because the word, is it a conjunction, right? of and for. The preposition me. So the preposition of and for, they are different, right? So maybe from the very first time we studied the shepherd's rod and we encounter these terms, judgment for the dead, judgment of the dead, judgment for the living, judgment of the living, we tend to think that it is the same, but it's not. It's not the same. Because it is on purpose that God, how do you call that? Separated the terms so that we could be able to analyze or understand what procedure is that. So for example, we're going to write here in the board. So let's put here Brother Burns. So judicial sitting, and then it is called the judgment for, right? The preposition used for the term judicial sitting in the judgment is for. So let's put here the word for. So it's either judgment for the dead or judgment for the living, and that work is in the holy place. Because as we read earlier, that the plan of in the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. So here, actually this is the construction, right? If you're the place, right? But the services is this one, the sitting, the procedure. So, and next here, the term judicial session. So every time we encounter the preposition also of, or we say judgment of the dead or judgment of the living, that work or that procedure is in the most holy place. Because as we stated earlier, that it is Jesus Christ who arranged this procedure. So I would like to ask the audience, why is it that God separated the terms? Why is it that Jesus Christ divided the apartments into two? Holy place and most holy place. There must be a reason. Right? It could have been one, but he purposely divided the sanctuary into two. So, the reason why Jesus Christ divided into two, because these have different functions. Actually, the holy place the function of the holy place is for confession of sin. But the function of the most holy place is for the blotting out of sin. Right? So, we could read that in Shepherd's Rod, Volume 2, page 187. So the holy place, that is for confession of sin, according to 2SR, page 187. And in tract number 3, page 18, it says that his mediatorial work began first in the holy, then in the most holy. So it cannot be altered, right? The judicial sitting must come first before the judicial session. It's either for the dead or for the living. Now, aside from the function or the work that is the procedure that is being done in the most holy place is blotting out of sins, there is also what we call as the granting of rewards. So these are the major work, right? In the most holy place, the first work there is the blotting out of sins, and the next is the granting of rewards. Now, let us read here in tract number 5, page 109.
Track number 5, page 109. The temple and the altar, inanimate objects, must characterize two classes of inanimate saints. The two classes of the dead saints.
Right. So, track number 5, page 109 is, I think, this is quoted in Revelation chapter 11, verse 1, right? Verse 1 and 2. That, because the symbols are perfect. Christ's illustrations are perfect. So, it says here that there are two classes of dead saints, namely the temple and the altar. And we all know that a temple and an altar, they do not move, right? They're inanimate objects. So it is being represented by two classes of dead saints. And of course, the temple is bigger than the altar, right? And before the altar is being installed, because the altar is like if you're going to build a house, it's like a furniture, right? What furniture ba? It's a furniture, whereas the temple is like the house. So the house must be built first before you're going to install the altar inside. And since the altar is bigger, the temple is bigger than the altar. So the temple, it is being represented by those dead saints, those who lived or the first 5 seals, those who lived from 4000 BC to October 22, 1844. All the saints who died during that period of time, they are represented by the temple, the term temple. Now, and then the altar, they are represented by those saints. They are classified as altar, those who died from October 22, 1844, and those who will be resurrected on Daniel 12, verse 2. So let us put here, Brother Bird, the illustration. So let's put here dead saints. Dead saints. The dead saints, and then the dead saints is being categorized here or classified here into two. So let us read it. A, temple, represented by the temple, and then B, the altar. Now the temple, let's put there, Brother Burn, the first 5 seals. The first 5 seals, and then the altar is for the 6th seal. So that comprises the dead saints. Now, since the 6th seal, they are the last, how do you call that? The last group of saints, of dead saints, right? So let us read here before we're going to proceed here in track number 5, pages 109 and 110.
It says here,
Thus the temple, the first and the largest object, must represent the first largest body of righteous dead. Thus from Adam's time to the beginning of the judgment in 1844. While the altar, a special and smaller object, must represent a special and smaller body of righteous dead. The righteous who die from 1844 on and who are to come up in the special resurrection on Daniel 12 verse 2. Earlier writings, page 285.
so this is the principle that was given in the shepherd's rod, just like what we put in here in our little diagram, or the explanation that was given a while ago by our brothers and sisters. Our brother Ed, talking about the temple being the largest object, or talking about the first 5 seals, or representing the first 5 seals, and the altar as represented by the 6th seal.
The smaller object of the dead saints. So inanimate object, the temple and the altar must pass judgment.
In Timely Greetings number 2, page number 10, page 25. It says there that God in the time of the judgment and in accordance with His uniform dealing with the human family. So because of course those saints, the temple and the altar, they are humans, right? And God is dealing them with a uniform dealing type of deal. Right, so let us ask the audience. Let us make the audience participate. Whether they need. Now, again, out of all the questions, the question why is, I think, one of the hardest to answer. How and why? Now, why is it again that Jesus Christ he categorized the first five seals into one, into temple, and then he separated the altar? Because earlier we already understood that why is it that Jesus Christ used the term judicial seating for the holy place, judicial session for the most holy place, because they have different functions. Now, how about this one? Why is it that he separated the temple and the altar? There could have been one in just one representation, but why is it that he divided into two?
According to TT number 10, page 25, the uniform dealing with the human family. So that is that God of heaven will order all the saints, all the righteous, they will classify every group of people.
Yes, Brother Ronald, but why? Why is it that he separated those two? So there must be a reason behind, and to get that reason is to get an understanding. Now, the purpose of that, because why he divided it into two, but actually not just into two, but later on we're going to make things how do you call that, from categorizing to subcategorizing them. So we're gonna to get the deeper meaning of this one. But the first reason is that because why they are being clustered, because of the resurrection, right? The resurrection, and especially the giving of the rewards of both classes. That is one of the reasons why it's being separated. But we should not be able to forget that although they are being categorized, they are still under the term used by inspiration here as there is a uniform dealing between the temple, the altar, and the rest of the saints. It must be uniform dealing, of course. Now, let us proceed here in Timely Greetings, Volume 1, number 11, page 10.
Says here, thus the Lord charged his messengers to cry yet, to proclaim again, to continue preaching the additional light, the judgment for the dead.
Take note, in this passage, the term used is judgment for the dead. The preposition used is for.
The cleansing of the sanctuary, Daniel 8:14. The purification of it by blotting out from the books, Daniel 7 verse 10.
So we can understand the preposition for the proceedings in the holy place, blotting out of names of the wicked. But preposition of pertains to the most holy place.
Yes, because if we're going to continue that passage, it says here that why is it blotting out of names? And since the preposition used is for, because it says here that the names of those who are not found eligible to come up in the first resurrection. And it says here the resurrection of the holy ones, as being mentioned here in Revelation 20, verses 5 and 6. So Revelation 20, verse 5 and 6, it is called the first resurrection. So the main, the goal of that judicial proceeding, which is called the blotting out of names, so that to find out who is only the ones who are eligible, right? To be granted by the reward, which is the resurrection. So it starts from there. It starts from the holy place.
So at the time of Sister White and D.T. Hotep, they did not understand the proceeding in the holy place. That is the preposition for. That is why God charged His messenger to proclaim again the additional light.
Now, as what we have said a while ago, that the what do you call that? The work in, the cleansing of the sanctuary, or the proceedings, is clustered with the resurrection. When we say resurrection, it is the voice of God and the voice of Jesus Christ who will resurrect.
I think there's a diagram in this slide. The 66 books in the Heavenly Sanctuary. If you could project it. This one. So, the very first, the one highlighted in the blue is the Lamb's Book of Life, not sealed with 7 seals, is divided into 7 divisions, but it is being, I think, taught in the previous episodes. So we have here the first 4 seals. These are the group of people that will be resurrected in the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. This is, I think, common to those who study the Bible, but they just don't know who are the saints that will be resurrected on the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. But it is only the first 4 seals. As you've noticed that the third seal is not included, right? Only the first, second, the fourth, and the fifth seal. But the first, second, fourth, and the fifth seal, they are here in the dead saints category. It's part of the temple, but not the whole temple, because there's a third seal that is not being included. And according here in the diagram, that the voice that is going to resurrect them is the voice of God the Father. Because that statement here from Abel, I think that we could find that in the Shepherd's Rod. So we need to separate the resurrection by which the voice is from God the Father and the voice is from Jesus Christ, because both God the Father and Jesus Christ, they are capable of giving life. They are capable of resurrecting. So it says here by inspiration is that, let's just read, that from October 22, 1844 here, to May 19 or May 19, 2011, that the entire proceeding in the 2 apartments, so the 2 apartments are being used from October 22, 1844 onwards up to 2011. That is intended to those who will be resurrected at the voice of God the Father, and that is from Abel, Revelation 20 verses 5 and 6. So the work there being done on October 22, 1844 is for the first 4 seals, holy place and the most holy place. I think the holy place there is in the second heaven.
Both apartments from 1844 to 2011, both apartments. There was a proceeding. The proceeding of the holy place blotting out of the names, and neutral place, blotting out of sins.
Yes, so there is a blotting out of names there from October 22, 1844. But it is being worked out in the holy place. So it's like how do you call that? Both both places are being used. While the names of the wicked are being blotted out in the holy place, at the same time, there is also blotting out of sins in the most holy place. Now, to prove that, let us read here in White House Secretary, page 20.
Says here, thus the Seventh-day Adventists in 1844 began to proclaim what they termed the investigative judgment of the dead, which in scriptural terms is casting out of those who have not the wedding garment in Matthew 22:11 and 13, the shutting out of the 5 foolish virgins, Matthew 25 verse 10, the dividing of the sheep and goats, Matthew 25:32 and 33, the separating of the bad fish from the good fish, Matthew 13:48, each of these among the dead. Synonymously, they rightly understood it to be the antitypical Day of Atonement, the day in which are removed from the books in heaven.
So you notice that the word there is books in heaven, and it is plural. So it is not only one book that has been worked out that there is a blotting out of names occurred, right? But it says here books in heaven.
The day in which are removed from the books in heaven the names of those who, in closing their life's career, failed to attain eligibility to come up in the first resurrection. In the resurrection of the holy ones, Revelation 25 and 6, all these aspects are comprehended in the words, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Daniel 8 verse 14.
So at the time of 1844, the Seventh-day Adventists began to proclaim the judgment of the dead. So, but at the time, the proceeding in the most holy place, but at the same time, the holy place blotting out of the names of the wicked, the purification.
That blotting out of names, it's the blotting out of names in the books in heaven, plural, not just one book, but it could be 2 or more books that have been used or being cleansed at that time in the holy place. Now let us try to familiarize the resurrection recorded in the Bible, and then we will try to connect it here. But take note and remember that from October 22, 1844 to May 19, 2011, the apartments is intended for the first 4 seals only, both in the holy place and most holy place. So don't forget that. So let us now try to familiarize the resurrection in the Bible.
Let's connect Bible Commentary number 5, volume 5, page 1110.
In this sense of the resurrection of the Son of God is given a lively image of the glory that will be revealed at the general resurrection of the just, at the second appearing of Christ in the clouds of heaven. Then the dead that are in their graves shall hear his voice and come forth to life, and not only the earth, but the heavens themselves shall be shaken. A few graves were opened at the resurrection of Christ, but at his second coming all the precious dead, from righteous evil to the last saints that dies, shall awake to glorious immortal life.
So, as what being read in Bible commentary, that the one being mentioned here is from righteous Abel to the last saint. Now, how about here in Desire of Ages, page 606?
Desire of Ages, page 606. The precious dead from Adam down to the last saints who dies will hear the voice of the Son of God and will come forth from the grave to immortal life. God will be their God and they shall be his people.
Yes. And in the passage, Desire of Ages, it's quite different. Because it says here that from Adam down to the last saint. So the one being mentioned in Bible commentary is pointing to the martyrs. Because the person mentioned here is Abel, and we all know that. Who is the one who really first died? Since the beginning of after the men fall into sin. Who is the first person who died? Is it Adam or Abel? It's Abel, right? Because he died at the age of 12. So Abel died. He represented up to the last saint. They are being represented. That passage is pointing to the martyrs. Let's put there, Brother Bern. That category is for the martyrs. From the first, let us say, from Abel, which is the first martyr, to the last saint, the last martyr, saint. And then we need to separate the one in Desire of Ages where it says Adam, because Adam, he died naturally, right? He died in a natural death, but although Adam died in a natural death, but I think he is not, he didn't became, how do you call that? His eyes didn't became blurred like that, because it's quite different before compared to our time now. In science, it is called the period of disintegration. The more, as the time goes by, as you've noticed that our age became getting, how do you call that? People die earlier than usual. Because before they would reach 900 years, but right now it is hard for individual to reach 90 years old, right? But there's still some who had been able to reach that age, 90 years old. But it is already seldom to hear. Now, both of them, it says here that the voice that is going to resurrect these two, it is the voice of the Son of God. Meaning to say, it is Jesus Christ. And it says here, historically, actually, Abel died first before Adam, and I think that, according to inspiration, it is more or less 800 years gap of time. From the time when Abel died to the time when Adam died.
Therefore, at the second coming of Jesus Christ, all the resurrected saints are come forth to life. But what saints? The martyrs and the natural death.
So let us try to compare that here. These two categories of those saints, and then to the temple and the altar. So how do you harmonize that? That one. So because our goal here is, as we mentioned earlier in the very first passage, that God is not the author of confusion, and we must be, this complete system of truth, they must be connected and harmonious. So we need to harmonize that. It's one of our goal right now, to harmonize these two passages to this one, to the temple and the altar, because both of them, they are represented by the dead saints. It's just that the dead saints being represented by the temple and the altar, it deals more on, how do you call that, numbers, right? By category of number of group of saints, right? Represented by the temple and then the altar. First 5 seals and the 6th seal. But here, the category here is not, it doesn't matter which seal. It talks about the way that they died. The one died through martyr. Because Abel, it is Cain who killed him. And there are lots of saints also down through the ages. After Abel died, there are lots of saints who died because of persecution. And we study this, what we call, there's a future event that there's another persecution that we are studying. And there are still saints that are about to die in that persecution. So they are being categorized here, but it doesn't talk which seal they belong. It's just the way that they died. And also, Adam, being those who died naturally. Right? So we need to harmonize those two. So the only way to harmonize these two is that it says here by inspiration. Now, the only conclusion is that both of them, is either the temple and the altar, is that they are divided into two classes. Those who died martyrs and those who died in natural death. And it is the same with the altar. It is also divided into two classes. Isaiah 57:1, those who died naturally in natural death, and those here in Revelation 14:13, those who died naturally.
Both of them, altar and the temple. So the altar, the temple, there are two classes of saints, martyr and natural death, also in the altar.
Yeah, so we need to say from 4000 BC to 1844 BC, there are saints there who died through martyrs, because of course Abel is from the first seal, right? And during the Dark Ages, there are lots of martyrs there, and that is still a part of the, I think that's part of already of the fifth seal or fourth seal. I mean fourth seal. So it's either by group or by individual. There are people who are represented by this passage here. So that is the only conclusion with that. And also this one, let us put here, Brother Bern, that in the altar, those who died martyr, they are the ones recorded in Revelation 14:13, because there's a prophecy that we call the Great Tribulation, and also the one here in Isaiah 57:1, those who died naturally. Because if you're going to read Isaiah 57:1, there is a term there mentioned, the evil to come. That the saints are, they will rest before these evil days to come. Then that evil day to come is the pointing to the Great Tribulation. Because during the Great Tribulation, those who will die are represented by the martyr.
So natural death, Isaiah 57:1 is they are died prior to the Great Tribulation.
Now, how do we connect that to the two voices? Another, the resurrection by God the Father, and also the resurrection through the voice of the Son of God. So we need to connect that, because of course, these temple and the altar, all the saints being mentioned here, they will all be resurrected, of course, right? So, during the resurrection, who is going to resurrect them? Is it the voice of God the Father or the voice of Jesus Christ? And who is who? So we need to connect the dots now. So let us put here, Brother Bern, the resurrection by the voice of God the Father, and then the resurrection by the voice of Jesus Christ.
At the time they resurrect, that is the time the reward.
Right? Now, it says here that the resurrection is only divided into two voices, as we repeat it again, that And here it says that, but also the same voice of the God the Father, He will resurrect those who died in natural death and also martyr. The voice of God the Father, there are some saints that He is going to resurrect them, those who died naturally and those who died martyrs. And it says also here that in the Bible, the voice of God the Father is Revelation 20 verses 5 and 6. So, that event recorded in Revelation 20 verse 5 and 6. Let us put here, Revelation 20 verses 5 and 6.
We can easily understand who is the people the resurrect of voice of God the Father, and who is the people they resurrect the voice of God the Son. And both of them martyrs and natural death.
Right? And so, whereas the voice of God the Son, or the voice of the Son of God, that's the term used here by the Bren. Voice of the Son of God, that is the event recorded here in 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17. So if you have time, you could read those verses. So that's a different resurrection, different voices. Open and close for this. 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17. Right. So let us get back to the proceedings. Right. This is already the last. I think this is the last event, the resurrection. Because once a dead saint is being resurrected, the reward has already been granted to them. Right. That is the everlasting life. So let's get back to the proceedings. Let us go to early writings, page 42.
This door was not opened until the mediation of Christ, Jesus was finished in the holy place of the sanctuary in 1844.
That door that mentioned on that passage pertains the door into the most holy place.
While in the Jesus Christ in the holy place, the door in the most holy place was closed. At the time Jesus Christ entered the most holy place, the inner door, the door of the most holy place, was open.
Right. So let us put here in the diagram Christ's work, because according to the reading in early writings, page 42, that the door was not open until the mediation of Jesus Christ was finished in the holy place. So we need to talk about what was the mediation of Christ in the holy place. So let us put here directly from 1833 to 1844. Because 1844, the mediation of Christ there is already in the most holy place, but it doesn't mean that there is no work in the holy place at that time. Okay? But for sure, from 1833 to 1844, there is no work in the most holy place at that time. The work is only in the holy place. Now, from 1844, let us put another timeline. From 1844 to May 19, 2011. So we need to know the work of Christ during that period of time.
So in 1844,
Now, according to the back part of this, we do not have enough space. That
So we need to ascertain clearly what is the work of Jesus Christ in 1833 to 1844 in the holy place.
So the one being worked out from 1833 to 1844 is the temple, the first 5 seals. So let's go back to the back part of the word. Right? So at the beginning of 1833, although the 5th seal did not yet end, right? The period of the 5th seal did not yet end. The period of the 5th seal did not as yet end, but the work in the holy place already began. And it must deal first with of course, to the people who first live on earth. So it must start with the first seal. But the symbol used in Revelation 11 is the temple. So the one being worked out here is the first 5 seals. So that is the term of that sternity. Insignia. ID. The ID. The ID there is the first 5 seals. So, the mediatorial work of Christ there is that, according to what we've already studied, that it is called as the blotting of names. Right, let us put there, Brother Burn. Blotting of names. No, blotting of names. So, not yet blotting out, right? Only blotting of names. So, when you say blotting, that is just like when you buy a marker, if you bought a marker, then if there's a sentence or a phrase that you want to highlight in the book, then you're going to highlight it with a marker. Right? So this same one here, the work of Christ here is only the blotting of names and not yet blotted out. It has already been marked that these names, but of course the one that is being blotted here, the names that had been blotted here is the names of the wicked. So that is the work of Christ. Generally, but not just that, but only in this study. Now, from 1844 to May 19, 2011, that is already the blotting out of names. But take note that blotting out of names, it did not occur in the most holy place in the third heaven, only in the second heaven. There is already a blotting out of names. Who is the one who blot out the names of the wicked? Who are they? Who blot out the names? Who has been given the task? The angels, right? So the one who does the blotting out of names, let us put there, Brother Bern, the angels. But here, thank you so much for the diagram. So, pwede mo tanaw dire, pwede mo dire. So here in the first 5 seals, the one who does the blotting is Jesus Christ. Blotting only. Blotting this one. Blotting on. No out. No out. There's no word out. Only blotting. So that's it. So the one who does the blotting of names is Jesus Christ, but the one who does the blotting out of names are the angels. So meaning to say that there's no, there's no chance for the angels to commit a mistake, right, in blotting out those names, because that is the same names here. Those names that had been blotted by Jesus Christ during from 1833 to 1844, they are the same names that will be blotted out since 1844 to May 19, 2011. So that is the prophecy recorded in Daniel 8:14, that the sanctuary will be cleansed. Right? But the cleansing of the sanctuary after 1844, the one being cleansed there are the books, plural. But actually that books is, those books are in the holy place, and the angels who does the blotting out.
So before Jesus Christ entered the most holy place, in October 1844, he will already blotted the names of the wicked concerning the temple.
So that is why here on earth during 1844, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they're the one who's proclaiming the investigative judgment of the dead. Okay, because it's the one being we've read earlier by Sister White, that they're really in scriptural terms casting out of those who have not the wedding garment. There's an actual event during that time, so that is why there are also a group of people who's proclaiming that message. Although Ellen G. White did not know that it's actually blotting out of names by of the wicked by the angels. They don't have yet the full understanding, but they knew, but they don't have the how do you call that, the full description or the full information regard to the processes in that period of time. Because Ellen G. White, I think, did not know this one, the blotting of names during 1833, 1844. They don't also know that there were the first 5 seals, right? So it's a So if we read the shepherd's rod in tract number 3, page 73, it says there that the day in which the Lord will blot from his book the names of all sinners. So if you could read that, that is what it meant by blotting of names. So by this work from the dead, we could be able to understand that it's the same dealing, because this is a uniform dealing. The same dealing from the temple, the altar, and even the worshippers. Right? Every saint, they must undergo blotting of names, those who are not eligible to be given the reward, and then the blotting out. See, it's the same work, actually. Either temple, altar, and the worshippers. Now, let us proceed. Because the same book in tract number 3, but on pages 50 and 51, that is the one being mentioned here, that the cleansing of the heavenly sanctuary is a work of cleansing the books, right? The books, by blotting from them the names of both the backsliders and the tares. So that is being mentioned.
So I guess that is clear. One of the proceedings that we are talking about, or the proceedings that is done, particularly to the cases of the first 5 seals.
So that the blotting of the books in the names of the wicked, that is the first work in the holy place.
I think everyone is familiar in Matthew chapter 13. I think this is where Jesus Christ said that in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers. Who are the reapers? R-E-A-P-E-R-S. The reapers are the angels. So it is Jesus Christ commanded that in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye first the tares. And who are the tares? The wicked. So, names of the wicked, represented by the tares. And it says here, and bind them in bundles to burn them. But there's no actual burning it here. So the tares therefore are gathered just prior to the harvest. So let us put here that on October 22, 1844, that is the beginning of the harvest, right? The harvest of the harvest that pertains to the dead. So the harvest being mentioned here, it says here that in the holy place during that time in 1844 is that is what we call as the harvest of the tares. Because the one that is being harvested there in the most holy place, it says here that it's called the harvest of the wheat, or we could say that the harvest of the righteous. So let's put here by Lerberg. In 1844, it is called the end of the world. Could hear that term. So the one is being called there the harvest. The harvest in the most holy place during that period of time. Say harvest.
That is the beginning of the end of the world. 1844.
So the harvest there in the most holy place is pointing to the righteous. Harvest MHP righteous. Something like that. And then the harvest in the holy place is did he do? Most holy place. The one being harvested here in 1844 in the most holy place is the righteous. But the one being harvested in the same period of time, the one being harvested there in the holy place are the wicked. Because you cannot call this one harvest yet because it is still blotting. The holy place. The wicked. Now, how about this statement here in, as we've read earlier this is in the Bible, but we could also read this one in Shepherd's Rod, Volume 1, page 228, where it says that the tares therefore are gathered just prior to the harvest of the wheat. Now, it says here that in the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, for example, it was clustered by resurrection. So the very first group of people is pertaining to the first four seal. Who are again those first four seal? Is that the first four seal? Hala. The first, the second, the fourth, and the fifth seal. The third seal is not included. Right? Because the first four seals, according to what we have in the diagram, that they will be resurrected by the voice of God. So we should not forget that they will be resurrected. The first four seals, they will be resurrected by the voice of God the Father. And I think we already read, if you were able to remember, in 1TG number 11, page 10, and White House Recruiter, page 20, that we also put here in the diagram that the voice of God the Father, He will resurrect those who, there are some that He will resurrect those who died naturally and those who died martyrs. Right? So it says here, there's a question. So what is the difference between the natural death that will be resurrected by the voice of God and the natural death that will be resurrected by the Son of God? So what is the difference, you think? Because here, let's put here also here, Brother Bern, the voice of the Son of God. Jesus Christ is also going to resurrect those saints who died martyrs and those saints also who died in natural death. But this is not the same people, okay? It's not the same people, but they have the same category, since they are being resurrected by different voices. Because as we've studied earlier, that there are only two classes of dead saint. For example, who are those who died naturally aside from Adam? Yes, Moses, right? He also died naturally. So we need to distinctly separate Adam and Moses. It says here that before we're going to get complicated, let us go first to general terms. Let's get back to the general terms so that we could be able to understand. Alright, so before we're going to proceed,
So I guess before we continue, so we have to pause for a minute and we have to refresh our mind. We'd like to give an interval song. We'd like to give the interval song. So, Bernal. We'd like to ask the kids or the simple ones? Oh, the kids.
Hey, hey. Joe drive of Israel. You Ben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Manasseh, Joseph, Benjamin. Moses, writer on the book in Hebrews, Sados, Lagos, Number, and Deuteronomy. Good morning, brothers and sisters. Happy Sabbath. These are the 12 apostles of Jesus: Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, Simon, Thaddeus, and Judas. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. That is the 39 books of the Old Testament. The New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, Jude, Revelation. That is the 27 books of the New Testament. 7 brothers of David. Type and the antitype. Now let us begin to enumerate first the type: Eliab, Aminadab, Shemaiah, Nathaniah, Radai, Ozin, Elihu. That is the type. Now let us continue the enumerate the untypical brothers of David. Brothers of John, Bashan, Gilead, Salem, Waco, Motendel, Virtue, Philistine. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. This is the books of the Old Testament and its chapters. Genesis has 50 chapters. Exodus has 40 chapters. Leviticus has 27 chapters. Numbers has 36 chapters. Deuteronomy has 34 chapters. Joshua has 24 chapters. Judges has 21 chapters. Ruth has 4 chapters. First Samuel has 31 chapters. 2 Samuel has 24 chapters. First Kings has 22 chapters. 2 Kings has 25 chapters. First Chronicles has 29 chapters. 2 Chronicles has 39 chapters. Ezra has 10 chapters. Nehemiah has 13 chapters. Esther has 10 chapters. Job has 42 chapters.
All nations, the great multitude in the altar. all nations, the great multitudes in a temple. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
I would like to enumerate the description of Zechariah chapter 4 in cumulative verses. Letter A, the two olive trees. The first olive tree, the Old Testament scripture. From 1504 BC to 393 BC, from Genesis to Malachi. The second olive tree, the New Testament scripture, from 37 AD to 98 AD, from Matthew to Revelation. Letter B, the two golden pipes, meaning the two prophets who interpreted the Bible. The first golden pipe is Sister Ellen White, from 1854 AD to 1915 AD. The second golden pipe is Brother Victor Hatif, from 1930 AD to 1955 AD. Letter C, the seven golden jobs represent the seven gifts bestowed by God to the church. Number 1, apostles. Number 2, prophets. Number 3, teacher. Number 4, miracles. Number 5, gift of healing. Number 6, helps. Number 7, governments. Number 8, diversities of tongues.
Thank you so much sa ato ang mga kabataan. And again, we shall continue to our subject, dealing the subject. So what we have dealt previously, Brother Ronel talking about the proceedings clustered with the resurrection. We are talking about the temple and the altar. As a recap, meaning there is a saints, or the temple is classified also into two: martyr and natural death. Also, the altar is classified into two: the martyr and the natural death.
Both of them, there are two divisions.
All right. So, as you've noticed in our diagram, that here the first 5 seals, the one being worked out from 1833 to 1844, is the first 5 seals, right, Seri? But from 1844 to May 19, the one that had been worked out here are the first four seals only. So what have you noticed, Sister Edna? The names of the wicked had been blotted by Jesus Christ, the entire first five seals, the entire temple. But at the beginning of 1844, up to May 19, 2011, those names that had been blotted by Jesus Christ, only the names of the wicked of the first four seals had been blotted out within this period of time.
From 1844 to May 19.
So meaning to say, there is one seal, the third seal, is not yet being touched here. But the names of the wicked of the third seal, those people who lived under the third seal, has already been blotted, but not yet blotted out. Have you noticed that? Huh? So that is why it is being, what do you call that? Named, or there's an ID which we call the first four seals, because they are the first four seals who, during the harvest time in 1844, had been worked out. That is why they're being called first four seals, although the third seal is not included. And why is it that the third seal was not included here? Because the resurrection is of a different type. They are not the third seal, although they are part of the temple, the first five seals, but they are not included in the resurrection being mentioned here in Revelation 20 verses 5 and 6 at the voice of God the Father. That is why it is being separated. That is why we stated earlier, we quoted in 1 Corinthians that God is not the author of confusion. Right? So we could be able to understand that the entire proceedings here is intended for those who will be resurrected at the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. Yes, because actually to go directly to the point, the third seal, although they are a part of the temple, but they will be resurrected. Special resurrection in Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel 37. Now, in here in White House Recruiter page 20, it says here that the heavens books deal with all aspects of life. So meaning to say, that is why our subject is being entitled the 66 books in heaven, because all of those 66 books in heavenly sanctuary, they deal all the aspects of life here on earth. So it's hard, right? It is hard if you're going to deal everything with only just one book, right? So there must be different kind of books. That is why it became 66 books. And that is one of the challenging part in this subject, because we're going to deal some of those books, but not the entire 66 books, but maybe we're going to deal just some few books. Alright, so I think we're going to use the entire board right now to make an illustration of the processes. Are you ready? Are we ready, brother? So, for example, let us draw here, Brother Bern, here at the top. Let us draw a miniature representation of the people. Because we will try to explain now White House Recruiter page 20. That the heavens books deal with all aspects of life. So Brother John Byrne is going to draw here an illustration of people, human. Tatawa siya. Alright, so copy paste na. For example, those people, they are the everyone that is being born here on earth. It's either righteous or wicked. Right? Let us put it that way. So there's a book for this one from the very beginning, since it deals all aspects of life. So that book is what we call as the book represented by the sea. So let us draw here a book, Brother Byrne, represented by the sea. So if you're familiar with here in the earthly government, we have what we call as the census, right? Uh, did anybody already go to your house and then they ask for how many residents are there, right? And they're going to give you a sticker, and then you're going to put it in your wall so that they would be able to recognize that this household has already been enlisted for the census record. So that is in the heavenly sanctuary. There's also similar to that, and that is what we call the book represented by the sea. So from the very beginning of life, everyone that has life here, a human being, it's already been recorded in that book.
At the time you're born in this world.
So that is the book represented by the sea. That is one of the 66 books. Right? Now, from the time you were physically born to the time it's either you will be saved or you will perish the destruction. It's either, there are only two ways, right? It's either you will receive eternal life or eternal death. That's we commonly knew. So for example, let us put there, Brother Byrne, in the life's journey of every individual, the bottom line there, let us put there, Brother Byrne, there is what we call as the book of resurrection and the book of translation. So that's the end part. Okay? In your journey, in your life's journey, it's either we're going to be enlisted in that book of resurrection, or book of translation. Duha jud na. Kung maluwas. Alright, we have some brethren, sister. Okay. Alright. So we have one of our brethren online is who wanted to greet online. So let us give her the time, Sister Judy. So, hello, Sister Judy. She's live now. She's live from California. Hello out there. Yeah, so this is the first time we saw Sister Judy. Alright. So I think California is, I think, 9 hours behind from Philippines. 10 hours, 10 hours behind from Philippines. So it's right now it's 8 p.m. midnight 8 p.m. in the evening in in California. It's still a Friday evening. So that's our brother from our sister from California. So maybe there are some of the online brethren who want to talk to us or say hi. That's totally fine because this solemn feast is for all. Either you are listening online or here in Philippines. So, or even you could participate if you want. Okay. We would be how do you call that? Happier to hear your voices and see your faces, even if it's online. And yeah, Sister Blush is right. We hope to see you all someday physically. And we all know as we study the prophecy that that will happen the soonest, right? There's no more much time for this world. So let's proceed. Proceed to the proceedings. Proceed to the proceedings. Now, so here we already wrote some books, right? So the destiny of these people, of all the people who live in this earth, it's either they're going to be in the book of resurrection or book of translation if they are going to be saved, right? But there's also book of resurrection for the wicked. But we will focus more on the righteous. Okay? So before they would be granted the promise of eternal life, it's either the promise of eternal life for resurrection or eternal life for translation, they must pass the proceedings. Right? So they must undergo the judicial proceedings, and that is what we are trying to talk about right now. How does the proceedings work in accordance to the plan that has been laid down already by Jesus Christ and God the Father beforehand? So once you are physically born on this earth, automatically your name will be enlisted in this book represented by the sea. So your life's journey is going to start. And the heavenly ledger, we also have the book of records. Aside from this, but we will not put it here. So it's going to, how do you call that? You already have a slot over here in this book. Your name will be recorded, and then your records will be recorded as well. Right? But at the moment when you receive the gospel, for example, you were born 1990 and then you received the gospel in 2018. So I mean to say, when you reach the age of 18 years old, your name will be listed in another book, and that is what we call as so marag paana ta ba pa esta hangtod maabot ta dito sa resurrection. So that book is what we call the Lamb's Book of Life, not sealed with 7 seals.
Before your names come up in these two books, because these two books pointing to the rewards, right? So you must pass the mini books.
Lamb's LBL not sealed. Alam pala siya. Right? So when someone is going to accept the gospel, for example, when he reached the age of 18, some 16, some 12 years old, or 24 years old, 34 years old, 44 years old. So at the time when you accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ, irrespective of seal, it's either first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh, then your name is going to be, how do you call that? What is the process here? From transferred. So let us put here whether we're transferred. So like a smiley face. Okay. So your name is going to be, the term is transferred.
From the book represented by the sea to the Lamb's book of life.
So I mean to say, your name will be removed from the book represented by the sea. The names will be, those who accepted the gospel, their names will be removed from the book represented by the sea, and it will be transferred or inscribed to the Lamb's book of life, not sealed with 7 seals. Right? So this one is the beginning of your life's journey. Right? From the day you were born. And then you committed sin, you committed good works, you have bad deeds, you have good deeds. But when you accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ, your name will be transferred here, over here. Right? But it's not yet an assurance that you will be saved once your name is already being written in the Lamb's book of life, not sealed with 7 seals. That is why it is called not sealed. But it is the Lamb's book because you accepted the gospel of the Lamb, which is Jesus Christ. But it is not yet sealed because this book, it will contain the names of the wicked and the righteous. So at the beginning of your spiritual journey, for example, here you were physically born, but here you're spiritually born. So when your spiritual journey as a Christian or something like that already started here, and once you did not endure to the end, right? When the judgment that began in the holy place, and then during the eligibility examination of the books, and then you were found out that you are not eligible to receive eternal life, it's either resurrection or translation, then what will happen to your name here in the Lamb's book of life, not sealed? What will happen? All those who are not eligible, blotted out and then back to the sea. So the term used here is that the names will be removed, it will be rewritten. Papunta na si Baba, brother. Ikan diri ko dun. May arrow. So
at the time you did not come up to the eligible either resurrection or translation, your name is back to the book represented by the sea, from the Lamb's book of life.
So why is it called rewritten? Because you were once inscribed in that book, and then it is called rewritten because you were once inscribed in this book and then removed and then inscribed again. So that is why it is called rewritten. Or according to the parable, it is those fishes, or the bad fish, they are thrown back to the sea. Alright? But this one is another study in our previous episodes. It has been dealt here. These processes has been dealt also with the records, but we're not going to talk about that because it's gonna take time. There's an attach here, the records. The records when you were born, when you did not accept the gospel, and the records when at the time when you were spiritually born, or when you accepted the gospel. It's a different records also. So all of those are part of the 66 books in the heavenly sanctuary.
But at the time you endure to the end during your spiritual journey, so either come up to the book represented by resurrection or translation.
fifth seal, the book of salvation is divided into seven books in their respective seal. Second seal, third seal, fourth seal, fifth seal.
So that's correct, because if the book represented by the sea, even the book represented by the sea, since it's the one that has been listed here is the whole people on this earth, right? But the book not sealed with seven seals, let us say that book, every page is, for example, first page is intended for the first seal, second page is intended for the second seal, third, fourth. Yes, that is what, from the first seal to the seven seals. So this book. And in Revelation 11, the saints there it's being classified actually into four. There are four classes of saints: the temple, altar, the worshippers, and the court, and the court outside. So the temple, first five seals, the altar, the sixth seal, and then the worshippers and the great multitude, they are in the seventh seal. But only the court outside will not undergo this kind of process, the great multitude, because they will be saved directly. They will hear the gospel message at the time when there is the proceedings in the holy place is already finished.
They will be listed in the...
So they will not undergo this kind of processes. The great multitude, they will immediately be saved. But we will talk about that in the last part.
Because the church is already purified when they are converted to the message.
Yes, the church is already purified, and God will not allow that to be polluted again. So everything that must come in must be purified as well, or they must be sure be saved during the loud cry to the great multitude. Now, allow us to read here to continue this one in 8 symbolic code numbers 1 to 12, page 11.
Thus the Lord's voice is crying unto the city, the church, that he shall shortly purify it by removing all but the pure narrow way, travelers who have sighed and cried for the abomination therein, and have consequently received the seal of God. He is, in other words, warning the church that the harvest is come, and that he is about to cast out the bad fish and transfer the good fish into the vessels.
Right? So, as you notice that the last phrase where it says there that transfer the good fish into the vessels, so that statement, transfer the good fish into the vessels, could not be applied to this one. Right? Because this is already dealing with the parable of the net. The parable of the gospel net, and that is a different parable, and that is a different book also. So that term, when transfer into the vessels,